Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique, or Fantastic Symphony, which he composed over the course of a few months in 1830, is perhaps most famous for its lengthy programme note in which Berlioz explained what each of the symphony's 5 movements was supposed to depict. Berlioz was not the first composer to write a programmatic symphony, and indeed one of his most celebrated predecessors, Beethoven, had written a pastoral symphony, also with 5 movements, which was supposed to give expression to the composer's feelings in response to nature. Beethoven also included descriptive headings to each of the symphony's movements, but the sheer length of Berlioz's description far outweighed Beethoven's example. Its autobiographical subject matter also lends it a particularly romantic quality. Berlioz's symphony is often taken to be a fictionalised account of his courtship of the Irish actress Harriet Smithson, whom he had seen performing some of his favourite Shakespearean roles in the Parisian theatres. He fell madly in love with her despite having had only limited contact, and his interest in her bordered on the obsessive. At one point he apparently set up lodgings opposite her apartment, and his letters to friends at the time are full of impassioned statements of his love for her. The couple would eventually marry, against opposition from Berlioz's parents, and would have a son called Louis, before later living apart. Berlioz would go on to outlive her. The composer made no secret of the fact that he was the young musician described in the symphony's programme. The symphony comprises a sequence of 5 scenes or episodes which roughly corresponds with traditional symphonic outline, with faster outer movements framing a dance movement, a slow movement, and a march. In the first movement, the musician encounters a woman who, he says, unites all the charms of the ideal person his imagination was dreaming of. Every time he sees the woman, he hears a melody, an idée fixe, which captures her character. This explains, says Berlioz, the constant recurrence of this particular melody throughout the symphony. Thus, in the second movement, the musician finds himself at a ball, where he meets his beloved again. The idée fixe, the melody, is transformed to fit in with its new musical surroundings as part of the middle section of a waltz in A major. In the third movement, the events take on a darker turn, as the musician becomes anxious that his beloved has betrayed him. His gloomy thoughts find expression in the sound of distant thunder, which Berlioz achieved by having 4 timpani drums playing drum rolls. In the next movement, the march, he dreams that he has killed her and is being marched off to the scaffold to face execution. As he places his head on the block, he hears the melody again, but this time it is cut off before it can be completed by the fall of the guillotine which severs the musician's head from his body. Pizzicato strings imitate the head bouncing onto the floor before a roar from the crowds in a triumphant G major close the movement. The final movement, by far the most fantastical of the symphony, is a dream of a witch's Sabbath, a meeting of witches. The musician sees himself in the midst of this hideous gathering of all sorts of devilish creatures coming together for his funeral. He hears the beloved melody once again, but this time it has been transformed into a vulgar dance tune, and we understand that beloved has joined in with the diablerie. Have a listen to the symphony and see if you can track the progress of this melody across the work. Listen out too for the marvellous instrumental effects throughout.